The following podcast is an RMG Media production.
A Renaissance woman fearlessly takes risks, commits to self-improvement, and gracefully embraces her weaker days. She understands that her dreams are worth the fight, tears, and pain, prioritizing herself as the most valuable asset in both life and business. Uniquely irreplaceable, she embodies grit, determination, and a warrior spirit, overcoming challenges with battle scars that enhance her beauty. In 2024, it's the year of the Renaissance woman. Time to rise, thrive, and ignite the powerful woman within. Our highly anticipated fourth Renaissance Women's Summit is a value-packed one-day event featuring unparalleled networking, enlightening panels, interactive workshops, and inspiring keynotes led by top-notch entrepreneurs and female leaders. Acquire the knowledge to become a true Renaissance woman in business. Join us at the fourth ever Renaissance Women's Summit on February 24th, 2024. You can use the code podcast to get 20% off your tickets. We'll see you there. Welcome to the Renaissance Podcast, a podcast for Renaissance women
and men
who want to create a modern-day Renaissance in their life and business.
We interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs and share their unique stories.
Are you ready to create your Renaissance? So Standard Self-Care is here. They are hot off the plane, you guys.
Hot off the plane. A little late, but hot off the plane.
Welcome to Nashville, Austin and Hannah.
Yes.
This is your first time here?
Yeah. Actually, both of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
The weather is just perfect for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like
Stunning.
Beautiful, stunning.
Yeah,
Love
stunning.
it. Like
perfect.
But it's
pretty
fun
much a match
and
with
cozy. Definitely a different plan.
It's cozy. It's so funny. We had a little bit of a time zone because they're used to being on Eastern time zone, which I know because I'm from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it's always a trip up. And then you come to Nashville and you're like, wait, where are we?
I feel like we just went north, so it doesn't make sense to me that
it makes zero sense. And then I feel like there's parts of Florida that are on Central Times maybe. So then that's also confusing. But anyway, well, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
And we have your beautiful products here, which is, they're stunning. Like the product is so you want to grab it off the shelf, which I know was an intentional thing. And I'm such a nerd about the branding process. So I would actually just love to kick off talking about the inspiration behind the packaging and the branding.
Yeah. You can kick this off because you're the branding expert.
Okay.
Austin's drinking some happenstance whiskey, by the way.
Yeah.
He had to pour a little glass, which is so Nashville, I just have to say.
Yeah.
And shout out Paige Parker, who's probably listening to this episode. Okay.
He doesn't realize how much he fits in here. He'll figure it out soon.
Big whiskey.
He'll figure it out.
The whole vibe.
Everybody's drinking tequila these days, and I'm over here nobody wants whiskey. What's going on?
Oh, y'all are going to have so much fun tonight. You need to let me
and
know.
He's a foodie. The food here, he's going to have the best time.
Wait, do you guys have dinner reservations?
We're going to make a reservation, but we're
going to figure it out.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out in a bit.
Okay, so fun.
We'll probably be there an hour late.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Not because of him. He's about to kill me for this because he's always on time.
Oh, so he's the more on time person. That's interesting. Okay, I love that. You're a little bit more we'll get there when we get there.
Sort of. I would say it's about the fifth time. It's kind of like marketing, the fifth time you ask someone to buy your product is when they buy it. It's the fifth time I asked Hannah to get ready and then we're out the door, right?
I mean, opposites attract, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
But the branding of the product.
The branding.
You want to switch topics now?
She's and the branding.
Let's start with what we are missing to start, and then we'll get into the branding because it's an interesting story.
Yeah, I was also going to just back up too, as far as how we got to packaging the way that it is. And not to just gloat about things that we did, but we're really happy with how it turned out because we have spent the last 10 years working on consumer packaged goods and getting to build the vision of other people's brands. And myself, I did the packaging design on a lot of other brands. And so with Standard, when we were starting it was a great opportunity for us to kind of take all of our learnings, both in the product development, in the company building, and in the product design to really make something that we all were super proud of and knew that it was going to be unique and stand off a shelf and stand off online as well and be a really strong both visual and physical product.
My favorite thing I think about your company, which I love so many things about it, is the name. Because it's all about holding that higher standard for a product, which is amazing because, and I know you guys are the experts in this, but for those listening, the consumer has never been smarter, right?
100%.
And so you knew that going in. You were like, we're not going to try to fool anyone. I've heard you speak on other interviews, Austin, about like the word natural.
Yep.
And can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. So all of us, just back it up a little bit from we've always been involved in like that in the CPG background, specifically in health foods. Anything that you see kind of in Erewhon is like the LA concept where we spent 10 years, and anything in like Whole Foods, right? You're looking at products that people want to better their lifestyle, right? People want to be healthy when they shop there. They're not going to the Walmarts to get their groceries, right? They're absolutely looking forward and focusing on their health. And when Hannah and I were working on products straight out of college, we really found in the back end of marketing, certain words are like triggers to consumers, right? And it can be a good trigger and it can be a bad trigger, and it can be like a non-transparent trigger, which is what I think of it as, right? So like natural and even organic, right? Even if you look at like federal labeled and mandated things, there's really no definition federally for the word natural. Anyone can kind of slap it on a product and they're never going to get reprimanded. No slaps on the wrist, right? There's no real definition to say, hey, this is actually better for you, right? Organic is a little different when you have USDA organic, which is mostly in like Whole Foods and nice stores like that, right? Where it's 95% organic, right? Hannah and I, being kind of like the perfectionists that we are, we don't like 95%. We want 100%, right?
Right.
So we looked at it from if we don't want to go down the route that everybody else is kind of going, which is an interesting route, right? Because a lot of those stores look at your labeling and they say, oh, you have to be USDA organic, or we like those brands because we can actually tell and it's tested for that. We get all that. That's amazing. But in reality, we wanted to be extremely transparent with our consumer. And that's where we started the brand, even from the packaging, before the packaging, right? We decided, if you look on our packaging, there's a whole list of no's, right? That's everything from vegan to no silicones, paraben-free, all that good stuff that we wanted to stay away from. We knew 100% we didn't want those in our products because those are mostly triggers for people's skins or their overall general health. It's not a holistic way to look at health to just say, okay, here's what we don't do in one part of the segment of what we're selling, right? We wanted all-encompassing, holistic, healthy products.
We gave our chemist quite a job.
That is
because that's
sure.
what we gave her, is the list of no's, but then, hey, like make it work just like these products and even better.
Wow.
100%.
So she had her work cut out for her.
And that kind of aligned us with standard because we knew what the standard was. We've worked in the marketing behind the scenes. We were giving these products out to people. And it's not to say they're not healthy, right? In comparison to your standard food, they are much healthier. But we wanted to take that one step further and be like the healthiest, right? Because when you talk about goods that are like manufactured in general, not like in your kitchen, but in labs, right? And things like that, and they're put on a production scale, right? They tend to lose that all-encompassing health factor due to cost, right? So even some of the brands that we were very familiar with and worked on right out of college, they're great as soon as they like sell out. For example, the juice company that we had, Suja Juice, amazing company. And I'm so proud to say today that they sold out the company, but their morals are still the same. Versus something like Oddball Juice that also sold the Coca-Cola that got kind of annihilated. Same kind of thing with like vitamin water. It's more of a Gatorade than a vitamin water anymore, right? So when we look at that, we want to stay true to the consumer in our marketing and our products and everything and be the healthiest we can possibly be and raise the standard, right? That's the whole kind of premise of how we formulated standard self-care. And the cool thing about, we originally thought of like, we found out we were going to do skincare. Skin is the largest organ in your body, right? And that's why we knew we wanted to focus on that. However, we knew that we also didn't want to limit ourselves. I'm a very like top-down thinker and very, okay, if we do this, then what happens 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road? If we name this a skincare brand, technically speaking, we'd probably only release skincare products. Me as a man, her as a woman, we know it's not about just what you put inside of your body or outside of your body. It's about both, right? So we have a plan, not just for skincare, but for other products, supplements in the future that we're really excited about.
Yeah. It's so amazing what you guys are doing because I think about, you guys are probably around the same age. I'm in my early 30s. I don't know where you guys have beautiful skin. Clearly this is working inside. And I know you're a big runner. You just did a marathon in Hawaii, which is incredible for like a million's reason. You're a big workout guy. Clearly you are your customer, right?
100%.
Which I think is so crucial when you're launching something like this. But take us back to the origin of it, because you both have incredible backgrounds. You worked with Nike, and I know you worked with Talentless. You both like have these massive brands. How did this come together? And of course, I'm going to ask you about the dynamic of your relationship too. Very interested in that. Hannah's like,
You go first.
No, ask anything. I think our story started very similar. We actually both went to the same college in LA, and we were both in a very similar friend group from the very beginning that was very entrepreneurial and involved in startups. And so I think that just kind of set us in a trajectory that landed us here today, because we were already kind of turning our wheels entrepreneurially very early. And we were a part of this group of friends that I think was pushing the boundaries constantly. The first startup that he worked at was also the startup I worked at, was kind of like the brainchild of it. So they were both very connected. A lot of the same people were involved in it, and they both grew really quickly. So it was amazing learning experience to be a part of. I started at mine when I was still 17. I think he was probably like 20 when he started at the startup he did. So it was from very early ages to have that experience. And for me, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do in my career, but because I got involved with the startup so early, left on the executive team, and had all of that experience launching national retailers with a health food brand. And we were one of the fastest growing brands ever to launch into Target and Kroger and, basically every national retailer. That after that, I just started consulting with other brands. And I think even though I was young, I gained a bit of respect from people knowing I was bringing a fresh perspective into different products and different fields and industries. And it was amazing to have experience in the food and like healthy food space, which has a lot of crossover with a lot of wellness products. But it was great leaving that also to get to bring that approach to other industries. So then I got to work with Nike and be able to be a part of a lot of campaigns with them where I was bringing a very like young and fresh perspective to the wellness space. And that was obviously a different industry than the food space. And then I also got the ability to work on other food products as well and do their branding and brand development. And bringing Standard to life just kind of came from, Austin can talk about his experience too, but us both having a lot of experience with different brands in the wellness space and knowing kind of what we saw was working from all these teams and also what didn't work. I was a part of a lot of things that failed also, which was probably the best outcome of anything that happened in my early 20s, because I learned so much from that. And it was way more impactful than some of the successes I was a part of to come into my later part of my 20s, which we both are now, and have seen both successes and failures. So
and like learning that failure is just part of the process too. I think that there's no better learning than that. I feel like going into an entrepreneurial endeavor. So that's remarkable that you had that. Did you go to college or like starting at 17? I'm like trying to do the math.
No, I did go to college. That's where we met, but I only lasted 2 years. So
that's right.
Yeah. I'm technically on my leave of absence. So I'm still, and could go back whenever, but I loved it and I'm kind of a nerd. So it broke my heart to actually leave college because I really wanted to finish it. But at the same time, I was a part of that startup and I had a great opportunity in front of me. And either I kept it or I moved on and stayed in school. And I think you go to school for opportunities like that. So for me, it became kind of an easy choice. And my family probably thinks I made it too quick. But then afterwards, it's never been something that's held me back. Like we talk about it a lot too. I feel like we get asked this question about school because he ended up finishing. I didn't. At least one of us has a degree. But I think a lot of people might be scared that, of the obvious things. Like they might not be able to get the jobs they want if they drop out of school and, all the things that kind of come to mind when you think of dropping out. And it's not for everyone. I would say there's people that going to school and finishing it or going to even extended schooling of any sort is really valuable. Because if you're not exactly sure what you want to do, going to university is such a great opportunity to have time to just have time and really develop and try different things and maybe intern or just have time to like even let your mind figure out what you're interested in. But for me, I kind of already knew that from a young age. So it worked out.
So from a young age, was it Because you've been so ambitious your whole life. I know that. But was it just, I want to be my own person. I want to have my own career. I want to have my own business. Was that like always kind of the trajectory for you?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to. My family's very entrepreneurial, and I kind of came from that mindset of being able to pave your own way, and it doesn't need to be a conventional path. I also off and on homeschooled my whole life, so I kind of had that in me of it doesn't need to be by the book of you go to school every day and you do this and you do that. And I started working when I was in 7th grade, and so I kind of already knew I wanted to do something creative, entrepreneurial, but I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know I would exactly work in marketing at a CPG brand to start or what that would look like. I just knew that I had all these ideas in my head and I just needed kind of an outlet. And I was really lucky to be involved in that first startup because I feel like I also had a lot of great mentors that were either investors in the company, advisors to the company, the other co-founders. And so I kind of got guided during that process. And then all the other brands that I've been able to work with since then have all been kind of like, I feel like my extended masters, honestly, because they've been really exceptional learning experiences. And I got to do that when I was really young.
Yeah, a lot of people would argue that that's the best education you could ever receive. I didn't finish college either. But I was opposite. I hated it. I absolutely hated school. I just felt so in a box, And so for me, it was like I did a year and then was like, cool, that was cute, did that, didn't do well, Yeah. But what about you? So you did finish school.
And hated it.
No, you either honestly, love it or you hate it, I feel like.
I had really good mentors. So like at Loyola Marymount, we did have a spectacular, I think it was ranked like 4th in the nation at the time that I entered it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I chose entrepreneurship because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it ended up being like the perfect thing. We had spectacular mentors. Half of our teachers had started like multi-million-dollar businesses through and through. Wow. So I had a little bit probably different experience because I taught you a little bit about everything. Where I came to disagreement is like I hated books, to be honest with you. Like that's not how I learn, right? I learned from doing. And then I learned from people can tell me as many times as they want normally, right? But if I don't go out and do it, then that's when it like doesn't sink in. So I needed to sink in and really learn from it. But all of our mentors there at school were great. I just didn't agree with the process of entrepreneurship either, like that they had taught at the time. Like the normal thing that they would teach was, hey, go get an idea, get a presentation deck together, go out and raise money, right? My thought was like, that seems like you're about to blow a lot of money on an idea that's not proven, right? So, and
you get this too with having an agency, what you can do without raising money.
Exactly.
Right?
It's a service. Yeah.
Exactly. It is a service.
Yeah. So like that's something that I've always focused on. And again, failure is super crucial there. You have to know what you don't know in order to fail, in order to be better and just continue through that perseverance. Like I had 5 to 10 failures before we had one success, right? So that's crucial. Don't let everything on social media fool you. Not everyone is like a one-time great. I know people that are, don't get me wrong. It's not possible. Mm-hmm. It's very unlikely, right? Yeah. Especially if you don't have the knowledge to do so.
Yeah.
For sure. Or the connections to do so, or the mentor to do so. There's a lot of factors that play into that. As much as you may think like when you start that you know everything that you need to know, you never do, right? At the end of the day. So I finished school, but I've always worked since I was like 14. Like I've always known that I wanted more money, in fact, right? Just to mostly support my family, support my goals, support my agenda when it comes to philanthropy, things like that, right? A lot of people see that as selfish when I say I don't want or I want more money, but it's like I want it for good things too. So I don't think that's a bad thing. Right. If that makes sense. But yeah, going through college, it was interesting because I don't think I ever bought a book. I was like, I'm not doing this. One, I'm paying for a private education, right? Which is really expensive. Like, right. I should have teach myself this. Like, what did I pay for? But that was just me being stubborn. But in reality, you're correct. You can learn all you can from your teachers. It's not a bad thing, right? It kind of gives you the foundation, but you're really not going to learn anything about how to apply that into a real life scenario without actually going out and doing it, right? So did that. Had a really good first job, right? Which was what we talked about, the juice company. I think at 21, I was managing about 10 people that were just going out and handing out juice, right? In the Southern California area, which was just constant, right? And most of them were students like me. And we just built out a team from there. Got really lucky from one of my mentors. had a great experience there. But what that also did is kind of give me a false premise on what it should look like. Because this company was literally sold to Coca-Cola for what, $280 million in 2 years.
And that's
So it's
Suja.
like, it's 2 years.
Is that how you say it?
Yep, Suja, S-U-J-A.
Yeah, they're going to be part of our conference.
Amazing.
I didn't realize that they got sold though.
Yeah.
This
All right, I
was
live
years
under a rock.
ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
this was years
This is
ago.
years
Okay.
ago.
Mhm. So Coca-Cola did like a 2-part investment in them. And I was there for
Wow.
like the second year of that where it grew probably the fastest, right? So from then on, you're kind of thinking, oh, this is super possible and it's easy, right? Because you're like, I just had this experience, lived through it. But then you don't realize like there's so many other things besides of what you're doing that contribute to the success that is happening in front of you.
And that was probably one of the last. There's a couple others, but startups that had that spike that
100%,
quickly. It was
100%.
a very unique situation.
But
Very unique.
don't you think like the most, having a little bit of that naivety, like being a little naive, like that's like how we do it, right? Like, because we don't know
For sure.
all the shit that you have to deal with. Like, that's like, I think you have to be a little delusional
Oh,
to
for
start
sure.
a business, right?
For
like,
sure. If you fail, like most people
Yeah.
will say, like if you fail enough times, like you should learn from it. And then if you're getting the same result, which is technical failure, right? You're crazy if you keep doing it. So I always kind of use that against people now because I'm like, you told me that, but guess what? No, right? Like,
Well, and I heard someone say the other day, it was like, it takes 15 years to be an overnight success.
exactly.
And I liked that it said 15 because I feel like you hear the 10, you
Yep.
hear 10,
Yeah.
but it's like, I'm at 10 years now. Well, 10 years this year. And I'm like, okay, 15. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we're getting
There's
there.
another one that's like most super successful companies are formed with a founder that's 40 when he
I
started.
was just going to say the
right?
same
So
thing.
it's like-
40.
Yeah,
like-
40.
So
We're not
we
even
doing
close.
good, y'all.
Yeah.
I
We're
mean, y'all are
just
doing better
fine.
than me. Y'all are what, 25? How old are you guys?
I'm 27.
I'm glad you said that because the skincare is working, but I'm about to be 30.
That's so young though.
Yeah.
And for you guys to have like your backgrounds too, and just like this like incredible work ethic, which we could talk about Gen Z and work ethic all day.
Oh, that we can.
Okay, well, I'm curious about the relationship because I work with my brother. He's like has been my COO. He's now like heads up all of our creatives at our agency, and it's like interesting. And you guys have been like, are we together? I don't even know. You're not so public about that. I feel like maybe, or at least in your bios, it's not so known that you guys are together. It's like, have been friends for 10 years and then formed this business. But I'm curious about the dynamic because working with a significant other is you either can do it or you can't. I could never work with my husband.
Yeah.
So how is that? And do you have tips for people that maybe are working with a spouse, are working with significant other, maybe want to get into business with their significant other? And I think we certainly saw a lot of that happen in the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I am curious just about the dynamic.
Yeah, I would say it's very unique. And like you said, it doesn't work for every relationship. I grew up with family that had family businesses my whole life. So it wasn't abnormal. I guess like I've seen the dynamic work, if that makes sense. And I've been a part of a lot of family businesses my whole life. So I've seen it. And I think we also had a unique situation where we knew each other for, it's going on 10 years.
Yeah.
So we went from being best friends, work partners, and we knew each other really well. So I think, it's very unique.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's for everybody, don't get me wrong, but I think the one thing that if you're going to go out and look for something like that, right? I don't think you should look for it in the first place. Like it should just happen. Like we knew each other for 10 years before, right? Worked together before. That's what built us into a relationship as far as I'm concerned, because you learn I wouldn't say the pros and cons, the benefits that other people like Hannah can do better than I, right? Which I think is huge in relationship building as well, right? Like Hannah does a lot of things that I would never do very well. So I think that's what you have to look into if you're going to like decide on something like that, both in business and in a relationship.
The yin and yang, I think, is so important. I think for sure in a relationship, but I think it's so much stronger to have that in business. I even think just because it's like, because you're more like creative brand side and you're more technical side is from what I like understand, which is such a power duo.
We call him AT is our IT department over here.
But like, I mean, I wish I had that. This entire office is just creatives. And I'm like, God, can we get a technical person in this building? You know what I mean? It's
It'll
so
blow
important.
your mind too, like what some technical, because they are creative, right? At the end of the day, it's just creative in their own right. Right?
He actually is also very creative, but
Yeah.
his brain,
His
like,
own way.
I
feel
would
like you
never
have
have been
to-
able to put this together though. So like as the brand started, right, we knew kind of a general idea, me and our third business partner. And I was like, we're missing a lot of things. All I thought of at the time was like, who could fill that void, right? You have to know. I actually had another conversation with someone that I mentored the other day. It's like, you have to know people's pros and cons, their benefits and what they're good at and what they're bad at in order to build your team out, right? You have to find the void, find the gap, and fill that with someone who's going to be very, very special for that gap. Don't just focus on finding someone that's just average, right? Find the person that's really going to go overboard and is very meticulous about their work. And when I thought about all the qualities that we didn't have at the time when we were just starting out, Hannah fit into the mix. I literally immediately texted you, and that's how you got involved in the first place, right? This was very early on. We didn't even know what we were doing at that time. We knew what we didn't want to do. That's kind of where the list of no's formulated. We knew we wanted to be super healthy. We didn't even have the line of products that we wanted to do yet. We had a general idea, but obviously Hannah came in and solved that void.
Wow. So the moment that you had the idea, was this your kind of like a first initial thing and then you pulled Hannah in? Or what was like the moment that you guys were like, okay, we're starting this brand?
I knew we were going to start a healthy brand. That's pretty much all I knew. At the time, we knew just from our background, our third partner is very heavy in finance, right? So we have finance. We have the technical side of like Shopify and everything that goes into that, the back end of email, Klaviyo, all that good stuff, right? But what we didn't have is someone that's like, I would say visually creative and brand oriented. And Hannah had obviously been with another brand that I was very familiar with as well, led by one of my mentors at the time. I saw what she did there and I was like, that right there is perfect. Focuses on packaging, clear and concise packaging more than anything else. And I just knew she had a lot of the things that me and our third didn't.
Well, and the social media is beautiful. Like it is like you land on the Instagram and you're just like, this is so stunning. It really draws you in, which like, of course, I'm going to like look at that and like, you know, but I think with a brand like this, it's so important because again, back to knowing your consumer, we want things that look pretty on our vanities. We want things that look good in our bathrooms. Like we want things that stand out to us because we are shopping with our eyes, you know? Can you speak on like kind of the branding and what you just really envisioned like this to kind of look like?
Yeah, well, I think this kind of hits on what Austin was talking about earlier, but when we were formulating the products, we kind of had the same, I would say, pillars as we did when we were creating the branding for it. So we wanted a very clean product. You could feel super confident about the ingredients, but then you could also feel great about the results you're getting from using them as well. There's lots of other very clean skincare lines. We're not unaware. It's a very crowded space. But if a product is super clean but doesn't work, you're going to go back to your tried and true products. And so that was what we had. That's our higher standard, is we wanted to make sure these are your tried and true. You're not going to go back to using your other medical grade skincare because our products are actually cosmeceutical, which means they have clinical effects when applied. And so they're at the same level as the other cosmeceutical lines that are comparable today, but they're very clean ingredients. And so we wanted the packaging and the branding to also be something that it is a product that has medical effects and is science-backed, but we wanted it to feel like you could still put it on your vanity and be excited to see it, or you would want to grab it at a store when you saw it. Because there's a lot of the more medical, clinical brands that look very pharmaceutical when you're holding them. So
totally. And it's wild to see the number of people that are still using, like, I'm just going to say Aveeno and like Neutrogena. And you guys maybe remember like Garnier has a face wash. And I remember being in high school and like scrubbing my face with the grapefruit, like Neutrogena with like the little beads. The St. Ives.
Come on.
And we thought
the sandpaper?
The sandpaper. And like I had so much acne when I was in high school and I was like, this'll do it. And I like, you know, the next day it's worse. And then this is controversial. You go to the dermatologist. What do they do? Accutane. And then you're basically killing yourself. Can you speak on that? Like, do you guys see like dermatology changing, or like when is dermatology going to get up to where we are as young consumers? Because I feel like we're ahead of them.
Yeah.
Like you guys are ahead of them who go to school for years and years and years. I mean, they're like medical doctors.
Yeah. Well, obviously prefacing it, we're not giving medical advice here.
Right. This is not, if you're listening to this show, this is not it.
I would say what is great is that we're in a very educational time in history where you can look up and you can do a lot of research yourself and you can understand what's in Accutane. You don't only have to go to your doctor to find out what the effects are or the side effects of something. And I would say for me, kind of my analysis is if someone tells me some of the risks of Accutane, for example, I'm going to be kind of like, like I'm not just going to avoid the fact that they told me, oh, it's really dangerous if you're pregnant or all these things. Because it's like, if it's dangerous for these reasons, isn't it maybe damaging for other things? So I think just kind of even asking questions is a good place to start. And then my own mindset is always, how could I do this holistically? Because if something is happening on your skin, which is like acne, it's because something internally is disrupted. So I would say as a first step, and maybe someone has very extreme cases and they just can't take it and they want to do Accutane. I have many friends who have done that. So if you need to, you need to. However, I would always try to take the route of holistic. Any kind of holistic option, because in the long term, it's going to take longer, but you'll actually fix the root issue. I've had so many friends go on Accutane and worked with myself, so many dermatologists who prescribe it. And then if it works for like 6 months or so, and then they have to do round 2 and round 3 of Accutane. And in the end, it still doesn't end up fixing the root issue. And you'll have to fix it at some point in your life. So you might as well do it as soon as possible. And for us with formulating our products too, that's part of why we're clean. It's not just that we can say it's clean. It's because having clean products doesn't disrupt your hormone. They're not hormone disruptors. So a lot of these products today, not even Accutane, just products that people are generally using for their skincare are actually hormone disruptors. So they could lead to side effects, could even trigger acne because your body is just getting disrupted, especially for women. Women are so fragile when it comes to your hormones that you want to be super careful.
Wow.
But it also shows like Accutane is a perfect example of showing like health versus like confidence too. One of the main reasons we want to be like results driven and science backed and super clean is because like people go to extraordinary lengths to look good, right? Specifically in your face, specifically in your skin, right? Accutane is a perfect example of saying like, I'm done trying everything else. I'm pretty much risking it to get the biscuit here. And I'm going to just take something that's literally a pharmaceutical that could destroy your liver for the most part and your hormone balance and everything in between in order to look better, to have self-confidence. That's why we named this brand self-care, right? Because it's not just about how you feel. It's about how you look, how you drive your confidence in an everyday situation. So Accutane is almost that perfect example because, yeah, you will go to a crazy pharmaceutical length to look good. But there's also an alternative, which is exactly why we created it. Like, you don't want to destroy the inside of your body just to look good. You want both. At the end of the day, there's 2 factors to this brand, and Hannah's mentioned them. There's results driven. People want results, right? They want their skin to look good at the end of the day.
Totally.
But at what cost is the real question, which is like, you see all these brands that have anything from parabens to hormone disruptors to artificial stuff in their products. That's what we didn't want to like risk in order to get beautiful, right? So we wanted that perfect balance. That's what cosmeceuticals are even born to do at the end of the day. And that's why we went the ultra clean route. We want something that's result driven, super, super clean.
Well, and autoimmune is, I'm seeing friends of mine, in their 20s and 30s going really public on Instagram talking about, there's this whole conversation right now because I feel like there's this, it's like a pandemic of people having autoimmune issues, eczema, rosacea. Does that all fall into that bucket? So I know you've had your own, is that wrong?
No, I mean, those are all.
I'm sorry, you said pandemic and I almost died.
Oh, God.
I think that's perfect word for it, honestly. Because there's a pandemic of people just getting prescriptions and not caring about what's in the prescription, which is exactly one of the problems we're looking. I almost made that comment earlier. Sorry to disrupt the conversation. But like when you talk about dermatology, those are doctors. Doctors, no offense to doctors out there.
Right.
But they prescribe things to solve problems, technically speaking, right? If you get a prescription, there's a reason you're getting that prescription. Unfortunately, a lot of what it leads back to, if you follow the money and if you follow the path, right? What it comes back to is like, they're incentivized to prescribe you stuff because they get a cut. Yeah. Big pharma, you get a cut. People want you to sell their products. And no offense, but regular dermatologists are not incentivized to do that, right? So they're going to prescribe you anything from the latest and greatest brand because that's the one who's pushing the most money behind them. What I like about Hannah and why Hannah is also on board with standard self-care is that she's an ingredient geek, as I would say, right? Yeah. She knows the ingredients back, forward, and front. She's not the one to go to a regular dermatologist. She's going to go to the holistic dermatologist, as she mentioned before.
Because it's root cause versus a cover-up, a
Band-Aid.
Band-Aid.
The root cause.
Yeah.
Don't destroy it. Like, look at any pharmaceutical commercial out there. What do they show you at the end? All the side effects.
Yeah, and it goes real fast.
Cool, my skin's good, but I'm going to die in 3 months, like you said. Like, that's pretty much what it feels like when they read out the list. And they read them fast so you don't see them. It's at the end.
Yeah. It's crazy. If we can avoid the drugs, you guys, like don't trust the government. Don't trust. Sorry, you heard it here on this podcast. I can say whatever I want on my show.
Right now. We're definitely in Nashville. I love this place already. I'm 3 hours deep in Nashville. I love it to death. No.
3 hours deep in Nashville, and you're already getting the controversy on the show.
We were 1 hour in, and he's like, "I think we should extend. I think we should stay longer."
That is true.
Well, I think you should stick around for the snowstorm and see how quickly no one can drive. And you guys are from Miami.
That's why we went to Miami. Same feelings. Different environment.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But you were going to say something.
Yeah,
I think it was just, it's on a similar vein, I would say. Like when it comes to these autoimmune, the pandemic, as you described it, I myself felt it, but I also have seen it with all of my girlfriends, especially people all around me are constantly having different things flare up and they go to a million doctors and can't sort out what exactly it is. That's what I had myself. And I grew up with that as well. Unfortunately, both of my parents had autoimmune conditions that what happened 20 plus years ago at a time when they actually went to doctors and couldn't find anything, but there was not as many resources as we have today. Yeah. Like I'm just such a researcher. And when I'd seen that happen to my parents, my mom actually had to get on a lot of medications because that was the only option. Now she's very holistic and she would love to have other options, but she's so far in that process. But for me, when I started to get all these different diagnoses of you have this and you have that, and a doctor would sit with me for all of the best expert. I went to all the best doctors and they'd sit with me for 15 seconds and just have a prescription for me. And I had, all these chronic fatigue and very common symptoms that a lot of people are getting today, and a lot of which are things that are caused by stress and just in general, the toxins that are all around us. And they didn't care to sit with me and understand what's going on in my life, what are, any pre-existing conditions, things like that. They just sat there. We're like, okay, read a couple of your symptoms. Here's a prescription. And the prescriptions were all antidepressants, which it's obviously not treating the root issue. And also there's a lot of people who have had success from certain drugs. So if you need to take it, like I said earlier, everyone has to take their own path. But for me, I took the holistic route and have been able to encourage a lot of people to do the same. But it does take longer. It's way harder. A lot of, but then it's addressing it now versus addressing it later and having issues with, many things that can happen later with your fertility or whatever happens later on. So
yeah. And it's just one of those things too. It's why not try it too? Why not try living a more clean life? Because it can't hurt. Yeah. It's it will take longer 1,000%, but I'm very big on that. And I was vegan, not that that's the way that anyone should go, but did that for 6 years, not because I was the animal thing, but because I was maybe if I just eat vegetables, maybe
I did the same thing. So don't worry.
Okay, now we're gonna turn to the host here. Wait, why did you stop? That's what I need to know because we have many opinions on this. Yeah. Let's hear about it.
It's actually really funny. So I was a big runner. I was running 6, 7, 8 miles a day, which was probably too much. But in the pandemic, it was we were 6 months in the pandemic and it was in 2020. And I just one day was I am craving red meat. And I just am big in
'Cause it's natural.
intuition and listening to your body. And I think my body had just had it. And I was just putting myself through so much rigorous cardio, and that's all I was doing. And I think I was probably iron deficient. I mean, hello. And I just woke up one day and I was like, I need a steak. Like, I'm done. I think I'm done with this. My husband was at work. I went to the grocery store. I felt like I was cheating on him. I was sneaking around the grocery store, and I picked up a thing of rotisserie chicken. I was like, in the cart, and then I got 2 ribeyes, and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm cheating, and literally
come back down to
got home. My husband got home from work, and I was sitting there sweating because he had only known me as a vegan. Our first date, he was like, "What's a vegan?" Because he's a big hunter. He hunted.
So he's eating meat all the time. He's probably stoked.
No, but he was like, "You've never been more attractive to me in your entire life."
I was gonna say,
he was like, "I just fell back in love with you, and I'm firing up the grill right now." And I was like, "Okay, I feel dirty. I feel like I'm doing something wrong," but it's because it's all I knew for 6 years.
Yeah.
And
I did the same thing.
Really?
I didn't go as long as you, but I did probably 2 years vegan.
A
but
long
that's
time.
because I was also going through all of these different health things, and I would talk to one holistic doctor that suggested being vegan, and maybe I needed to for a bit, but I also had the same thing where I was just like, I'm craving meat. And all my friends around me too, all my roommates, we were all vegan for so long, running ridiculous amounts, working out 5 hours a day. I don't know what we were doing.
What?
Well, it's not a scientific fact either, but that's how human race grew, right? That's in our DNA. At the very core of our DNA, we're hunters and gatherers, right? Yeah. So it's if we evolve in that path, yes, it's a little different today. We don't have to go out and hunt. We hunt at the grocery store. We hunt at Whole Foods. But at the same time, it's ingrained in us. That feeling is always going to be there.
Well, I had no energy at all.
Me neither.
That was where I was like, I can't do this because I can't work well. I can't think. And that was where I tapped out because I was like, I don't care what these people are telling me at this point. I can't think.
Yeah.
And that's when I think I finally was like, all right, I'm done. I miss meat. And I think also the more it sounds weird, but the more you eat meat-based products, the more you crave it. I think because I didn't for a while, I honestly got really weirded out by meat, eggs, everything, which kept me vegan, which I didn't even want to be. I just was like, it weirded me out for a while because I'd cut it out. And then once I did, I feel like the more I was like, yeah, now he knows I eat.
I like to make
meat.
it
all the meat.
Yeah, all the meat.
Same. But now I'm obsessed with protein and what it can do, especially being a woman. And you just have to have that. And it's weird. The veganism.
Where are the biggest sources of protein? Where do I get them from? You tell me. Yogurt, meat. That's literally, I have to have those, right?
You have to have your yogurt. You gotta have your meat.
Yogurt a little less. Meat every meal. Even if I'm eating eggs, it has to be meat. Even if I'm eating anything that has an animal byproduct, it's going to have any sort of meat mixed in with it. And I think I will, quick disclaimer here, I'm not a trader. I always ate meat, guys. Unlike these two.
Not a trader.
No, I'm just kidding. I always knew that just because my dad grew up just cooking steaks, right? Always did. And I always felt super healthy. Even when, and Hannah will tell you this, I grew up doing whatever I wanted to do with my body, meaning I would eat McDonald's because I was a soccer player. I could burn that off in a heartbeat, right? So I always needed something that was going to fulfill that. I don't know if I could have eaten the amount of vegetables, fruits, and anything else to sustain that, right? It's not only easier, it's just more effective. Any piece of red meat has everything you need in life to actually work and function properly. Whereas you would have to go to 20 different vegetables, cook those, whatever you want to do with those. It makes your life more difficult, which is not self-care, right? Self-care at the end of the day, and I'll bring this back to misinformation too. Self-care at the end of the day is not only just making yourself healthier, but making your life easier, right? And if you look at the misinformation that's surrounding veganism and eating meat and all that, there's so much. Again, the root cause is money at the end of the day. There's so much money in both sides of that either way you side with, you're going to get some sort of money for someone if you're an activist per se on either one of those sides.
Well, and also I feel with the vegan thing, I was taught that dairy is what is destroying your skin. Dairy is giving you acne.
It's a marketing campaign.
Literally. And so I
would say some dairy can though. If you're predispositioned to certain things, our dairy is not high quality anymore. I would say for myself, when I went from vegan, I still didn't have any type of milk for years still. And I started with raw milk. And I think I only had raw milk products for probably like a year and a half or 2 years. And now I can tolerate dairy, but I couldn't before. I was convinced I was lactose intolerant for probably like 15 years. I think since I was in 8th grade or something. And my family's Italian, so it really didn't work
They're
very
like,
well.
we can't handle this.
Also,
is not.
just to know that like no one's biased here. Like there's also just different versions of meat.
Yeah.
Right? There's like your regular store-bought meat that you buy at, I don't know. What do you guys have here? I don't know.
Like
I don't know.
Kroger, Publix.
Okay, yeah. So Kroger and Publix, right?
Yeah.
There's that meat. And then there's like grass-fed beef, right? That you can get from like Snake River Farms, which I personally love. Shout out. Sponsor me.
Sponsor of the show.
That's a slight. But like that, there's different levels to everything, right? If you get grass-fed ground beef or just a steak or anything like that, you can taste the difference, right? There's no chemical taste. It has much more flavor. It's natural, truly natural, not non-definition natural.
Right.
It's how it is raised, right? Because if it's eating that, chances are it's going to transfer you. If it's eating chemicals, it's going to transfer into your body.
What
If it's
absorbing.
not, though, it's not, right? So just honestly, one of Hannah and I's like main things that we do fully like kind of grew up in is like the 4-H community. Do you guys know what that is?
No, I don't know what that is.
Because the 4-H is like you're a cattle farmer. You're like out in kind of the boonies, right? And your goal,
you
have a show
an
cow.
animal.
Right? You have a show cow that's like a beautiful cow. It's
Wait,
like,
why are y'all teaching me this? Like, I'm the Tennessee person here.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm from
technically speaking, like my
from a
parents
small
are,
town.
and like I would always go out there, and like my grandpa like lives on like a property with acreage, right, where we're like growing. You could grow cows, chickens. Like the first thing he did to like make you a man, like that's our rite of service, is like go chop a chicken's neck right in front of your head, type of thing. Yeah, like that's the side of things that people today do not have. The
vegan in me, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm like, just kidding.
Just being honest here. But at the end of the day, like if you're into that, like you can go out and buy a grass-fed cow from your local community, and it's much safer than anything else because it's just not a business, right? Like, it's a family business, right? We bought half of a pig, which I love bacon. Don't get me started. But like we bought half a pig. It lasts a family of 4. We have 3 guys, my mother, right? That's a family of 4 at least a year.
Yeah.
You freeze it. It's like, where else can you get it? One, for that price, one that healthy and actually like normal, right? Not from like some random farm in the middle of nowhere where you don't know it's coming from or what truck it got loaded off of or if it's truly even grass-fed, right? At the end of the day, you don't really know because you haven't been there for the whole cow's life. You haven't been there for the whole pig's life. This one we had because it was our friends. Right? And we'd seen the pig grow.
You're like, we knew what he was doing.
Yeah, like he's our pet, but he turned into something.
But
that's the circle of life at the end of the day. It just is. And I think a lot of people have trouble coming to terms with that. But like, that's how we were raised. That's how we got where we are as humans today. Everything around you, even the room that we are standing in, the microphone, Hannah, anything that you name in this room has not gotten there because of what's happened previous to us, right? That's where we started. That's where our instincts kick in. That's where our DNA is from. That's where we need to go back to in certain areas.
Right.
Yeah. But it can be hard. Like I said earlier, it's hard. Information age. There's also so much information that like, that's why I went vegan. I tried every diet though. That's why like vegan was just like a fun thing for me. Kind of was like a test.
That's the biggest guess and check diet I've ever seen in my life. That's crazy.
But I've tested everything though. When I was in 5th grade, I tried like the low carb, low fat, Greek yogurt, 0% Greek yogurt.
I remember that.
Yeah, the Faya Greek yogurt, whatever.
Yeah,
that was fire.
Yeah, I did that every single day. Did not stray from it. I ate just that, rice crackers, and then like a really lean dinner. And I was running like 4 hours a day in high school.
Oh my gosh.
And I did every fat. I did the Quest bars. I did the Think Thin bars. I did Luna bars.
I'll give you a fact though towards meat though, and this is just my personal experience. So I don't take this like out of context, but like if we're talking health, one of the biggest things is like men for health is like you look at your blood. Right? For everyone, exactly. You look at your blood, you see your hormones. For men, testosterone is a big thing, especially with like fitness and all that, right? I have never stopped eating meat in my whole entire life. And I had one of the highest testosterone doctors I've ever seen, right? Like I was at a 998, which is absurd. Most people average, I think, what was the average? Like 400 to 600 range for men, right? My age. And not saying anything about like today's society, but I think like a lot of the misinformation has contributed to that, right? And none of that has been falsified. None of that has been like, there's a lot of androgynous testosterone in like the fitness community, steroids, all that stuff. Like, that's cool. Again, it's a pharmaceutical. As soon as you get off of it, what happens to your testosterone? It goes straight downhill, right? If you want to maintain your testosterone as a male, you have to eat red meat. It's not even like a question in today's society. You have to, because the only thing that's actually sustainable for muscle growth, recovery, and everything in between. And protein synthesis, it's everything to men as far as I'm concerned.
That's so interesting. I've never heard that like said like that before, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like you said, it checks every box.
Yeah.
Like if you have the red
every
meat,
single
good
one.
quality.
You don't just need protein. You don't just need creatine. Those are the 2 supplements that I take. Like Hannah's got a whole cupboard of like 20,000 supplements. I'll test them out. I'll dabble. Don't get me wrong. But like the 2 things that I stay extremely consistent, protein, creatine, and a pre-workout. Right.
I love that. I love that. And we could talk for hours more on that because that's so interesting. And I think that, I mean, this is such a big theme of our show. It's the new year. Everyone's trying to do the health thing, but like we want to like have sustainable things that we can do. And I feel like everything you guys have talked about today has been like things we can do all the time.
If you haven't figured it out yet, we like to keep it simple.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Exactly.
Like that is what, I mean, but that is like, that's such a great practice for entrepreneurship, for life, for just everyday living. Like the simple things are the things that you're going to do over and over again. Don't overcomplicate.
Routine, self-care, everything in between.
Well, okay. So as we're wrapping, super curious. We have a lot of small business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs listening to the show. You guys are so on it. You're so driven. You're so focused. Like, I mean, you're crushing it. You guys are like scaling this thing like crazy. What is your advice to any entrepreneur in the earlier stage of their journey?
I would say don't be scared of failure, especially on the early side. I think the earlier you can fail, I think failing fast is great because then you can get all the learnings from it and move forward and also not be scared of failing. The quicker you fail, the quicker you learn that you can get back up from that too. And that's definitely something I've learned. Austin has learned also. And I'm grateful for all the failures that I've had. And I can say that with 100% guarantee that all of those made me exponentially better in every environment I've been in after, because you learn questions to ask when you're at certain points. Sometimes when there's only successes, you don't know the questions to ask that would lead to a failure. And then once you see the failure, you realize what it took to get to that point and what you wouldn't do again. So not being afraid of failure.
I love that. We talk a lot about resiliency here because it's just like, that's the muscle. If you could have any muscle that you're working, it's that one.
Yeah.
And it's just recover quick.
And biceps. Just so clear.
Biceps too. Those don't hurt.
No, I think doubling, I would say the same exact thing. Hannah stole my answer, to be honest with you, but that's because we think very similarly in that regard. I would say the next step of that is going after what scares you, right? Like if you don't do that, you're never going to succeed. Also, like don't get me wrong, you can also fail and never have a success. That's just part of the game as far as we're concerned. But if you don't go after what scares you, you're also never going to be successful. Like one of the things, taking risk is huge in entrepreneurship, right? Whether it's like quitting your day job to transfer full-time into your thing. I've done that 5 times. It's failed 5 times, but I've learned so much from it, right? You have to get the mentality of, I'm ready to fail. As long as you learn from it and gain some knowledge that will go into your next either failure or success, if you can actually replicate that before you're like 20 to 27, that's where you want to fail. Because one, you're still like a kid at heart, right? Like, yes, there's many mature people. Don't get me wrong. I think we're very mature for our age, especially within the work right that we've done and our knowledge of the industry that we're in. But at the same time, you can't be afraid to just go out and get it. The biggest thing I always stress to people, and I even had to learn myself, is like entrepreneurship is not something that you want to go home and be like, oh, making my own hours. Right? Because I hear a lot of people say that, like, oh, I want to have my own job because I make my own hours. As soon as you make your own hours, like you're screwing yourself at the end of the day, because really it's your client's hours or it's your customer's hours that you should be abiding by. When in the business that we're in, Shopify world, e-commerce world, that's 24/7 because our store is always open. So don't talk to me about setting your own hours, right? Or setting your own schedule. Talk to me about how you're going to make your schedule more efficient, what team you're going to build to make your team more efficient, and make sure at the end of the day that every single base is covered when it comes to knowledge. Don't act like an idiot when it comes to I know everything. Act like there's always more information to consume.
And you probably feel that with social media. It never ends.
Exactly.
Everything you just said, I'm like, 1000%. Like we don't have the luxury. If you really are in it for the long game, like there's no luxury. I'm, whatever.
Yeah.
And it might look that way. You guys said that earlier. Like social media makes it look like we're just at Soho House all day, right? No.
We're today, but that's just.
Don't get me wrong. We have we figure out times to have fun too, and that helps balance it.
But then it's like, but you're always working too. Like, don't tell me you're not going to go to Soho House and like check emails and be on Instagram and be working.
I'll give you the perfect example because like we both like to have fun, right? But like the other day, because Hannah and I are in the CPG world, we often like to test new products, right? Hannah's gluten-free normally, right? I don't care for gluten-free stuff in comparison to like regular stuff, right? Because it's not the same flour, crust, whatever it is normally. However, like the other day I found it, and I kind of knew this like when we were doing it, we were like, we should just do some reviews of like gluten-free crust because it'd be cool to hear someone's perspectives from both sides, right? Like, gluten-free things inside and out because that's what your world is, right? In general. Mine is like, I don't like gluten-free things because everything I tasted didn't feel regular to me, right? So one thing, and I'm not even saying it's work, it was kind of like fun and work balance because, again, we're both creative in general, is like we just started filming reviews on like gluten-free cauliflower crust and things like that we found at Whole Foods on the regular.
Hilarious.
And like that was fun to me, but it was also kind of like a joke.
I love that. But, you're always consuming, you're always trying, you're always reviewing, and that like kind of puts you in the mindset of your customer too. So it's like
always education.
You're always educating, you're always working, you're never not. That's the lesson there. I love that. Okay. Well, where can we get these products? Where can we get them like for folks locally in Nashville?
Yeah. So one of the things, just to give context, and I'll let Hannah say her spiel. One of the things that we realized about skincare, right, is like a lot of people, especially when it's direct to consumer, want to try it, right? If it's not hosted by a big influencer, if it's not hosted by someone that they know that's a world-renowned dermatologist or anything in between, we wanted to make this accessible, right? So one of the things that we do is offer a lot of people 40% off on their first purchase so they can try it. From there, I'll let Hannah take it.
Yeah. So for Nashville, we aren't stocked anywhere here yet, but we're always available online at standardselfcare.com. And then we're also on every social media platform as well. We are very active on Instagram and TikTok, but we're on every platform.
Love it. Okay. Well, thank you guys. And y'all are personally on Instagram too. What's your Instagram handle?
I'm at Hannah Minardi.
Hannah Minardi, Austin.
I am the goat of the gram.
That's right. We were stalking you earlier, and I was like, "That's the best handle I've ever seen. That's so good." And isn't your profile picture a goat?
That.
Is it?
It's the emoji.
Yep. Yeah.
So if you find the goat emoji, you've landed on Austin.
And we'll also give you guys a discount code for everyone that you follow.
We're gonna do RMG 40.
Love. Okay. So 40. What's the 40?
40% off.
40% off.
Yep.
Okay.
We like to give everybody a chance to try it because we know that like skincare is difficult. It's like everything in life. Like there's a barrier to entry to trying things, right?
That's right.
And we like to get you guys at least to try our products so you can see the benefits, so you can see the results, you can see the cleanliness. We just like to give you that as a gift from us to you guys.
That's freaking awesome. Thank you guys so much. And we'll be sure to put that in the show notes and as well on social media. So thank you guys for being on our show. Welcome to Nashville. And we'll have to have you guys back on because
this was so fun.
You're definitely going to have to come back to Nashville.
Honestly, we've done many a podcast that I hate not doing it in person now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like,
it's not even fun.
Yeah. We did one Zoom interview when we first started the show, and I was like,
doesn't feel the same, right?
Yeah, no.
It's not the same. Yeah. So I'm glad you guys were able to make it. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys soon.
You.
We'll see you guys next week.